The poem that I chose for this discussion was NAACP by Langston Hughes. The general overview of this poem is more of a battle cry, letting the Black community know that there is an important meeting going down in Houston, Texas, dealing with ending Jim Crow laws. And in order for something to happen, they will need all the support that they can get. I see by the papers where the NAACP is meeting down in Houston, and I'd like to be there to see what they intend to do in these trying times today, because we need to take some solid steps to drive Jim Crow away. We need a delegation to go see the president and tell him from the shoulder just why we are sent. Tell him we've heard his speeches about democracy, but to enjoy what he's talking about, what color must you be? I'm cook or a dishwasher in the Navy. In the Marines, I can't be either. The Army still segregates me, and we ain't run by Hitler neither. The Jim Crow car is still dirty, the color line's still drawn, yet up there in Washington, they're blowing freedom's horn. The NAACP meets in Houston. Folks, turn out in force. We gotta take some drastic steps to break old Jim Crow's course. The first line immediately gives us imagery capturing the paper. I feel that Hughes included this paper to symbolize the reality that the Black community could see the light at the end of the tunnel with the help of the NAACP. For lines 2 and 3, this specifically marks an important time in history when, in the late 1930s, an extraordinary group of Black men began to organize and direct a civil rights movement by creating the Texas State Conference branches. Their main goal with these branches was to initiate lawsuits against racial discrimination in areas of voting rights, jury service, employment, housing, education, and public accommodations, or in other words, try to demolish the Jim Crow laws. For line 4, this shows the excitement of wanting to be there to witness a historic moment where people of color get recognized in the attempt to terminate racial discrimination. For lines 5, 6, and 7, the main objective of this movement was to get rid of the Jim Crow laws. At the time, the Jim Crow laws took over all of the lives of the African American people, giving them no basic human rights. Lines 8 and 9 give more emotion to the fact that they feel like the only way that they will get their rights is by talking to the most powerful person in their country, which in America would be the President of the United States. They believe that no one is going to listen to them unless the President says otherwise. The next lines, 10 and 11, give a powerful energy that is rallying everyone together. These African Americans have a list of needs, and they are going to confront the president to make sure all of their needs and more are meant to be equal in this country. Line 12 emphasizes how the president may be talking about democracy, but who does democracy really apply to? In my opinion, I think that line 13 is one of the most powerful lines of this poem. This line emphasizes again that even though America talks about democracy, who is it truly applying to? In other words, what skin color truly gets to live in a world where there is democracy? America was reflected to be one of the greatest places to live in, but in reality, only for white people. People of color were pushed to the side and treated like they were non-human by taking their rights away. In the grand scheme of things, white people took the word democracy for granted because while it was just handed to them, African Americans had to fight for it. Lines 14, 15, and 16 reflect a time when World War II began and the United States started to enter it. During this time, Jim Crow laws were still in place. This meant Black men who served were put into assigned segregated divisions of the military. The emphasis on the military in this poem adds more depth to the treatment of African Americans because the military is a huge aspect of what makes America. Even though these Black men still wanted to fight for their country, they were still treated like they were not a part of America and denied them their access. Line 17 conveys how the treatment in America was so awful towards African Americans, and Hitler wasn't even their leader. Hitler was, and still, is one of the most terrible people that has ever stepped foot on Earth. But Hitler was not even dictating America, and America was still able to make African Americans feel as if they were being dictated like Hitler used to do. The parallel that is made shows how Hughes wanted to let people know how awful the treatment towards African Americans was. Lines 18 and 19 are conveyed in a way that makes them shown as stated facts. The Jim Crow laws are still here, which means the color line is too. The way that Hughes portrays these lines is that at the moment, there was no way of changing anything until those Jim Crow laws were abolished. For line 20, this line is another hypocritical idea that Hughes tries to show us over and over again. America is known to be the land of the free, but that is a lie. Free means free for everyone, but African Americans were still not free. America may blow their freedom horns, but behind all of that is a bunch of lies, because America is not considered free until everyone is free. For line 21, this again adds repetition of what the main idea of this poem is. The NAACP is taking a huge step in Houston, and Hughes wants everyone to rally there. This takes the readers back to the main purpose of what African Americans are fighting for. For lines 22, 23, and 24, these ending lines are a battle cry. Hughes is trying to emphasize that there is a monumental step of progress taking place, and everyone needs to go out there and fight for African American rights. The use of rhyming force and course also allows Hughes to emphasize that with a bigger force, they could take down those Jim Crow laws and change the course of history for all African Americans. The main performance technique I used was changing my tone of voice. Since I think the tone of the poem represented rallying support from other African Americans, I stated lines like, "Folks, turn out in force," with more power to make it sound more influential. I also specifically changed my tone of voice for line 13, which was, "But to enjoy what he's talking about, what color must you be?" I made sure that my voice sounded like I was questioning the intent behind the word democracy when it came to America and how it only applies to white people. I felt that the tone was the most important aspect of this poem because if it was just read without emotion, no one would want to join and go down to the meeting in Houston or confront the president. I think Hughes wanted some true emotion behind his poem, which is what I tried to deliver. As a whole, this poem symbolizes a time when the Black community was given hope. They have been shut down all of their lives, not given any sense of hope due to the treatment in America, along with the Jim Crow laws. Hughes kept emphasizing the point that the community needed to come together as a whole force to take down the Jim Crow laws forever. I feel that this poem showed us readers that the reality of how it felt for African Americans to get the opportunity to change their lives. Like I said before, America may be the land of the free, but it is not considered free until everyone is free.